This is the new Pulsar 250 and you can have it in two versions. You've got the F and the N. F is of course fared, N is for naked, and the naked is cheaper. It costs 1.63 on road in Mumbai and this one costs 1.66, around that much, again on road in Mumbai. Now the difference between the two bikes, I don't know if you can tell, but it's got a fairing. This has got a bikini fairing, this has got a full fairing, it's got these mirrors here which are different, this has got stock mirrors, it's got a one-piece handlebar, and this has clip-ons, and that's where the differences end. Otherwise, mechanically, engine-wise, suspension, wheels, tires, you name it, and these bikes are identical. What we are going to do today is tell you about the new Pulsars. What's new, what's good, what's not, and if they are really relevant in today's scenario. And if they are, then which of the two is the one that you should go for? So let's begin with the design, because visual is the first aspect that when you look at a motorcycle, you decide whether you want it or you don't want it. Now in this case, these are absolutely new bikes. Everything on these motorcycles is new, including every panel that you see. Now this is a brand new design. Of course, there is a little throwback to the Pulsar, but not the original Pulsar, more like the RS and the NS. You can see that bit of design coming in through. Now the naked one, of course, it's got floating panels, same there, over there, here and here, just to give it a more technical look. And the shoulder blades here give it that hunkered down look, and overall the Pulsar now looks more mature, it looks more refined, it looks more premium than the older one, and I think it looks younger too. And so the audience, which is closer to maybe commuter with some amount of enthusiasm thrown in, or enthusiasm, that's the sort of mix that they're looking at, they will appreciate this design. I know a lot of people say that they expected more, especially on that one, because that looks just like the Pulsar 220, which is what that's going to replace, but that's the idea. So Bajaj says that they wanted to do a motorcycle that's better, but still the same in the way that all the ethos, the essentials, the feel of the motorcycle is the same. But it is better when people get on it, it's better in terms of quality, it's better in terms of feel. And I think they've done a good job here. If at all, I think quality, there are some places where they could have done better. You have orange feel, or that orange peel effect on the engine cases. You've got it on the rear subframe where the footrest is mounted. And some places you can see that the finish needs to be touched upon. But overall, I think it's a well-built, well-put together motorcycle. Now sporty they might be in terms of design, but when it comes to the seating triangle or seating ergos, these are pretty commuter friendly. So you've got foot pegs that are neutral, almost neutral, they're just right down the start of the seat. The foot pegs are not really high either. Plus you sit in the bike then on it. The handlebar meanwhile is wide and easy to reach. And I don't have to reach for the bars, they fall to my hands easily with my elbow slightly bent. Now the difference between this and the N250 is that this has clip-ons and that has a single one-piece bar, and the width is essentially the same. The only slight difference is in the height of the handlebar. This is slightly lower, maybe that much. That's slightly higher, this is lower, but you can't really tell unless you sit on them side by side. So no matter which bike you buy out of the two, the seating ergos are going to remain the same, they're going to remain comfortable. Seat itself is not very big, and it's got this contour at the back which pushes you a little in front, but you do get used to it. I'm a little heavy, so it sinks under my weight. If you're slightly light, maybe you'll feel that you're sitting more on the bike than in it, but for me it's completely in the bike and feels quite comfortable. Now let's talk about features, and as it turns out, the Pulsar doesn't have too many, which it should have had given that it's come back after such a long time. Now you've got this infinity display, looks really nice, the clocks, but the amount of information that's coming off that is very, very basic. You have no Bluetooth connectivity at all. Also ABS, you only get single channel ABS, and otherwise there's no real highlight to talk about in terms of features. Now it also has a good looking switchgear, it's backlit like it is for Pulsars, or has been. It's also nice to operate, nice click to it, so has that sort of engineering finesse, if you will. But overall features needed to be more on this motorcycle, especially in today's day and age. Now Bajaj says consumers don't demand it, but the thing is that these are hygiene features today. And if you're launching a brand new motorcycle, you better have it. Now, whether you wanted to give it as an option, whether you want to do another version which sits higher, but at the same time, I mean, they should have been launched together. So that's probably one thing that's missing on this motorcycle. The new Pulsars are powered by a 249cc single-cylinder air and oil-cooled engine. This engine, though completely new, finds its genesis or birth in the Dominar 250's engine. Now that of course is a liquid-cooled motor, and therefore it was comparatively heavier and more expensive to make and maintain. But the basis of this, the 249cc engine, is still that particular unit. The oil-cooled new engine makes a max power of around 24 bhp and a peak torque of 21.5 Newton meters. Now for those interested, the Pulsar 220F with its air and oil-cooled engine makes 20 bhp and 18.5 Newton meters of torque. So the new engine is clearly more powerful than the 220 air-cooled engine, but it makes similar power figures as the liquid-cooled Pulsars, which are the NS200 and the RS200. The torque output though is more on the new bike. And not just that, Bajaj says the torque curve itself is flatter and it stays flat for a wide spread of the RPM range. The benefit of that, of course, is a bike with a strong mid and top end performance, something one needs in traffic and when overtaking on highways. As for the cycle parts, the chassis is a simple one compared to the Pulsar NS and RS, with this being a tubular down tube unit that uses engine as a stress member. As a result, the new chassis isn't as stiff as the RS or the NS. Having said that, the new chassis is significantly stiffer than the other down tube units on the Pulsars, both past and present. The suspension, meanwhile, is your regular telescopic forks up front and a preload adjustable monoshock unit at the rear, which is really nothing to write home about. And the new Pulsar 250s also get newer wheels that are lighter and tires that are slightly meatier than one on the Pulsar 220. Brakes too are bigger compared to the 220. However, compared to the Pulsar RS200 and the NS200, which are based on the platform derived from KTM, the tire and the brake specs are identical. Now let's see how this translates onto the road. The first thing that strikes you about the new Pulsars is their pleasant ride quality. The ride remains comfortable throughout, and be it over broken roads, over sections that have been poorly relayed, or even potholes and bumps. It's not exactly plush, but it's good enough to take the bitter edge of the ride even for those with a back problem. We also quite like the nicely sorted weight balance on the two motorcycles. These feel neutral and relatively light when riding at slow speeds, as one makes their way through traffic. Even as the commuting speeds go up, the agility and the flickability of the new bike make them easy and intuitive to filter through traffic. The engine and the brakes help here, of course. The engine, like we said earlier, prides itself in having a strong and flat mid and top end, and that shows on the road. The bike pulls well from 3000 RPM all the way to its 9500 RPM red line without complaint. The throttle response is alert too, and you almost always find yourself in the meat of the power band no matter what RPM, and that is just lovely. Then you have the brakes. They make easy work of slowing the new Pulsars down. You don't need to lean on them or squeeze them hard. These have the bite and the progression and in fact the feel to modulate them with ease and with precision. Did we miss not having ABS at the rear wheel? Absolutely. With the kind of speeds you can now do with the new Pulsar in short bursts, and given our poor road conditions, we found ourselves locking the rear more often than not, and sometimes unpredictably, and that was not a good feeling. As far as straight line stability or high speed stability goes, as well as handling, the new Pulsars feel solid. But between the two, the N250 has a mild hooligan streak to it, reminiscent of the old Pulsars. It drops into corners more willingly, it eggs you on to ride a bit harder, and it's also less forgiving to your inputs. So it's fun, but with a sprinkling of nervousness. Not that you can't hoon with the F, but the N feels better at the job. The F250 on the other hand feels better on all other counts. It comes across as the more planted and less hurried twin. It has a quick and predictable turn-in too, and it doesn't move about much when leaned over either. Plus, it returns a fair amount of feel and feedback from its tires and its front end. Enough really to give the rider enough confidence to go foot-peg scrape. So, are the new Pulsars relevant in today's day and age, given that the top man at Bajaj himself said that these should have been out some 3 years back? Well, that's a yes and a no. Yes, because the design is totally current and in vogue. The performance too is strong and usable, and in fact very likable, and so yes, it is very relevant. It also has the right handling and braking hardware. An outcome of this is in line with what consumers and the segment demands. So yes, another tick in the relevant box. And of course, it's priced well, so one can't really argue with that. However, in terms of bragging rights, the new Pulsars have fallen back on the relevancy scale. Being new and late to the game demanded some wow features and talking points, which are both missing on the new bikes. What's more, these don't even feature stuff that's slowly but surely becoming hygiene content on two wheels. Things like fully digital console, a more elaborate rider information system, Bluetooth connectivity, navigation, and for this capacity of motorcycles, at least a dual-channel ABS. Good bikes, the new Pulsar 250s are no two ways about that. Now, if you want a motorcycle to ride on the road, take it out over the weekend, both these motorcycles work. But between these two, I'd pick the F, mainly because it's so close to the P220 that it pulls at your heartstrings. And this one, of course, it's sharper, but that seems better balanced in a way that you can have a more relaxed sort of commuting. So that's that. But are these really Pulsars? And forgive me, I'll just do a little bit of monologue, go back little in time. Now, when I started my career, Pulsars were the thing. And these were the bikes that we tested. At that time, Pulsar was brash, it was bold, it had headlining figures when it came to performance, when it came to technology, when it came to styling. You looked at it and it had the strongest road presence that you could have. These ones though, it's not the case. Do they have the highest horsepower in their class? No. Are they like really brash, really out there in terms of styling? One look at them and do you go, wow? No, they are palatable, but they aren't that out there like the original Pulsar was. Do they lead in tech? No. So what has happened to Pulsar? Pulsar, in my opinion, was the maverick brand at that time. It kick-started things. Now, today, Pulsar is your mainstream brand. Is that a good thing? For Bajaj, yes. But for us enthusiasts, we need something more. And that means that probably Bajaj needs to now introduce a new brand. Pulsar's gone mainstream, something to replace Pulsar from 2001. You know, the maverick brand, something that we can all aspire to have and appreciate and go wow.